Hi, welcome to this session of the ongoing IMF webinar series. In this session, we shall discuss about an interesting valley located very close to the roadhead at Gangotri, but rarely visited due to restricted access. A quick introduction about myself. I have spent 25 years in management consulting for corporates, which I do for a living. About 15 years of exploration in the rare and undocumented parts of Garhwal and Kumaon ranges, published regularly in the Himalayan Journal and the Indian Mountaineer. Privileged to have been awarded twice by the IMF, once in 2014 for Best Civilian Exploratory Expedition, and again in 2017 IMF Mountain Film Festival for Best Mountain Exploration Film. The Valley of Nelong is located strategically. It has Tibet to its north and east, Himachal Pradesh to its west, and the Gangotri and Badrinath regions of Uttarakhand to its south. The river Jharganga or Janhavi, draining this valley, brings the farthest waters into the Ganga near its source. At its confluence with Bhagirathi at Bhairogati, it often carries more waters than the source stream of Ganga. The difficult Nelong Gorge and the xenophobia of the inhabitants had restricted access into this watershed till the end of 19th century. After the Sino-Indian War in 1962, the Government of India restricted all civilian access to this area. The area does feature regularly in Indo-Tibet border dispute papers. Our teams explored this valley between 2012 to 2014 in 3 different expeditions. The first in 2012 June allowed us to open a route between Nelong and Badrinath while documenting the extreme southeast of the watershed, the Bassis Sea Glacier area. The second in 2013 June saw us exploring the Janak Tal and Janak Glacier area in central Nelong and attempting Mount Nakuche, the dominant peak. In 2014 June, we explored the Chorgad Valley in western Nelong and retraced the ancient tax collectors' route to Chitkul in Kinnaur Valley of Himachal Pradesh. Having done all these expeditions, if someone were to ask why Nelong, what's so special, I would say it has something to offer to different interest groups and can attract the historian within you, the geographer and the photographer within you for its exotic locale, and the adventurer within you for the rare routes it offers. Artifacts and structures of the past speak loud about the rich history of this valley and its people, the Jard, like this fine wood-carved deserted house in Jadung village. This house perhaps has been deserted for more than half a century, but beautiful carvings on fine Deodar wood talk of a different story silently. Nelong had many high passes to Tibet, the prominent one being Sangchok La, as called in Tibetan, and Jila Kanta, as called by the Garhwalis. The main trade route connected this pass with Bhairogati. There were other subsidiary routes as well, which used the other passes in the watershed. However, Sangchok La was the prime one. The Jards guarded their trade secrets jealously by controlling the difficult hanging bridge at the entrance to the valley called the Gartang Valley. This kept the watershed and its people isolated from downstream valleys of Ganga. This beautiful piece of ancient engineering marvel catches the eye just as one drives in about 4 kilometers into the valley. Stuck onto this gigantic vertical rock face seen on the far side of the river, hanging almost about 700 feet above the riverbed. These trade transactions with Tibet resulted in high Buddhist influence in Jard culture, even though the traditional roots of the Jards goes back to the Hindu traditions of Nisang Valley of Kinnaur. One can see money stones like this all over, especially in camping grounds and religious places. And of course, old pictures depicting the Jards with Buddhist prayer wheels, like this one taken in 1880 during the Krishbach expedition. Perhaps due to all this, the prime deity of the Jard is Lal Devta, a mixture of jungle deity, Hindu god, and a Buddhist god. The oldest of the shrine of the Lal Devta is still found ahead of Jadun village. One will find a Lal Devta and a Ringal Devi temple wherever they settle today. They carry the memories of this ancient shrine wherever they go. European exploration started in the area with the first painting of the valley by J.V. Fraser in 1850. This was followed by a visit from Herbert to the Nelong village in 1819. Herbert and Hodgson were actually the first ever Europeans to visit the source of Ganges at Gomukh in 1870. So Herbert explored his way into Nelong 2 years later and became the first European to visit this village. The next big influence in the area was that of Frederick Wilson of Harser in mid-1800s. He is regarded as the ancient Raja in Jad folklores, who apparently gave them guns to fight Tibetan intruders for the first time. Wilson played a key role in strengthening the infrastructure for access, which included the hanging bridge, and thus better political integration of the valley with the Garhwal state. The next state of documentation comes from the expedition of C.L. Grishbach, who explored the eastern extremes of the watershed and got into the Hopgard Valley of Tibet, which is right outside the Nelong boundaries. This all happened in the late 1800s, around 1880. The next set of information comes from John Bicknell Auden, who did extensive work in mid-20th century exploring the Managard area in southern Nelong. This is the J.V. Auden of Auden's Fall fame. The use of this valley by German prisoner Heinrich Harrer in 1943 during his escape to Tibet from British prisons in Dehradun is well documented. This was later made into a film in which the famous actor Brad Pitt has acted, the movie 7 Years in Tibet. For the geographically inclined, the valley presents interesting spectacles epitomized by this lovely blue lake of Janaktal. Very few watersheds present, as many as 5 passages into Tibet from Indian Himalayas, though some of these passes have fallen into disuse for well over a century due to socio-political and economic reasons. Interestingly, the Chorghat Valley on the western flank comes under the Bushehr region of Himachal Pradesh. And this has been like this since the times of Raja Karni Singh of Bushehr, who ruled around late 1600s. Shepherds from Kangra continue to have grazing rights here, who come through a long roundabout motor road to enter this valley every year. Most valleys in this watershed present a trans-Himalayan landscape, generally devoid of large trees and dominated by rugged, rocky terrains and dying glaciers. This presents significant water challenges for campsites while planning exploratory expeditions here. The other thing that stands out just as one enters the valley is the deep gorge carved out by severe erosion of millions of years. At several places, one can find massive rocks like this eroded by flowing water, standing very tall over age-old shepherd tracks. The colossal and towering rock faces amazes and spellbinds the first-time travelers right at the entrance to the valley. This is the famous Nelong Gorge. The gorge starts at the Bhairo Ghati confluence. As one travels up the stream of Janhavi, one sees these gigantic walls on the left and similar ones on the right. However, the tall walls on the right are punctuated by a couple of glaciers, which come down from high above from the Dev Parvat complex. The topographic dramatically changes and the gorge disappears as you reach the bend where you take a right turn to reach into Nelong. The topography here at Nelong is very friendly, and it's a fair bit of flat land on which cultivation used to happen, and the Nelong trade mart used to be here. The other interesting features include possibility of direct views into Tibet from various vantage points. The view here is a peek into Tibet from a point about 500 meters above the Mana Pass. All that is visible here in the picture frame is Tibet. We have taken this from the Basasi Westfall top. The most striking feature, however, one sees is in central Nelong, in the form of this magical blue water body called Janaktal, the highest place of pilgrimage for the Jad pilgrim. The head priest talks about the legend of Rishi Jannu having his ashram here by the side of this lake. There is also the story about a pair of swans living in the lake, which we could see during our maiden visit there. Interestingly, we found them to be migratory birds from far north called northern pintails. But how only a pair of pintails come and how they have lived through 100 years of legend is something which worth a deeper understanding and discussion later. Another interesting point is the grassy meadows that one finds here at altitudes much above 5,000 meters. In some other parts of the Himalayas, that altitude could mean permanent snow line, but not here. For people interested in rocks and geology, not only does one find wondrous colors of rocks on both sides of the road, some blue, some green, some bright yellow, almost all the colors of the rainbow. But one also finds interesting rocks in these dried out glaciers, like these ones we saw during our journey. We did not have the time to explore deeper into this topic, but definitely this is a place that would interest a fossil enthusiast. Spectacles like the boulder plains of Tridhara strike the eye, that force you to wonder how such a thing would have been created in the first place. Such a massive flatland full with boulders, perhaps a couple kilometers long and couple kilometers wide. Though plant life is scarce in this valley, it does have a good population of wildlife. We saw direct evidence of this when we came across a bharal kill on our way to Janakta. The predator seemed to be a leopard or a bear. In several places like the Tridhara plains, we could spot pug marks of bears and big cats. In recent days, snow leopards have been spotted near main roads, especially in the Gorge country of Nelong. For the interested traveler, one sees various possibilities after the government has relaxed some restrictions in recent years. Some of these treks are real easy, while others could pose reasonable challenge for those wanting more intense adventure. The easiest one to do with extremely rewarding views is a short trek to Janakpal. One gets to drive till a significant distance, which is till the village of Jadung. The trek distance ahead of this is about 11 kilometers one way over relatively easy terrain. And the total duration from Bhairav Ghati to this place and back would be under 4 days, with the days of exploration around the camp thrown in. The trek begins in the village of Jadung after a 45-kilometer drive from Bhairav Ghati. The village has deserted houses and barren farmlands, indicating about older times. It also has an ITBP post where paperwork has to be completed before commencing the trek. A short walk brings up Lal Devta Shrine and camping ground, a nice place for rest and refreshments. This is also where one gets to see the ancient Lal Devta Shrine of Jadung. From here, the track rises up to the steep right bank of Jadung Ghat and is more or less level till the Bharal point. We called it the Bharal point because this is where we saw the Bharal kill, and that is also the point where the track changes its nature and goes pretty close to the river. So following this track along the river, one reaches Janakta, the beautiful Janaktal, after about 8 hours of walk. The same day or the next day, a short scramble up towards the west and into the Feeding Glacier brings one to this place where one can see this lovely looking tower peak. After spending a day like this with explorations, one can go back the next day to Jadung, which is a day's walk back. The other trek with a moderate to difficult challenge is the trek from Nelong to Badrinath. This can involve about 12 days. The high point of the route is obviously Basisi West Col at 5,900 meters, after which one gets into the Saraswati Valley in the Alaknanda watershed and catches the Badrinath Mana Pass motor road. This is a dramatically easier alternative to Kalindi Khal with similar altitudes to deal with. As we all know, Kalindi Khal is the traditional route from Bhagirathi region to Badrinath. After a 22-kilometer drive to the east of Nelong, one reaches Nilapani. And this is where two rivers meet, Mana Ghat and the Nilapani Ghat. And this is also the point where the trek starts from a reasonably high altitude of 4,000 meters. After handling the major challenge of crossing the Managad River, one gets to Trimukhi Nala Plains, where one can easily camp. Water is nearby and the views are stunning. A little further ahead is the sprawling Tridhara boulder field, a spectacle by itself with its gigantic dimensions, which we saw in a previous picture already. Going further east, one enters the Ghora Ghat Valley and onto the Suraji Nala area. This is where one has to negotiate a bit of a tough terrain. It requires some river crossing a couple of times. And after this comes the bounding ridges of Basisi Bend, which show the international border. The land here is barren, rocky, the rocks are with lichens and some grass is there on the ground. But ahead of this, the route veers to the right and gets into the Basisi Glacier. And one reaches this high place called Basisi Kund at about 5,600 meters. This is a good place to launch the bid on the bounding ridge the next day, which has to be crossed at altitude of 5,900 meters. So after crossing that high point at 5,900 meters, one drops to Devtal. So this is the climb onto the top of the saddle, which involves a fair amount of negotiation of loose scree, which is quite frustrating. But having crossed it, one quickly drops down to this place called Devtal, which is also the origin point of river Saraswati. Then it is a long walk along the Saraswati river to Badrinath on the Mana Pass Badrinath motor road. So the route goes via New Jagraon, Rattakona, Gastoli, and finally onto Panavi. But it's a lovely drive of about 50 kilometers. One of the arduous challenges for the intrepid trekker is the traverse from Nelong to Chitkul by the Chorgad Valley, following the old tax collector's trail. This can take typically 12 days with good weather and may involve negotiating patches of crevassed glacier. This route starts with the shortest drive into the valley, which is the confluence point of Chorgad in a place called Dumku. This place is about 5 kilometers before Nelong, coming from Bhairoghat. The first 3 days involve a straight walk, the entire length of the valley visible all the way. So from Dumku, as you go ahead, the next campsite is Misosa Camping Ground, a lovely place from where both ends of the valley are more or less visible. Starting off from Misosa, after negotiating a bit of a tough patch, one gets into Thandapani. The tough patch is just about 200 meters before Thandapani of loose, free, and one has to carefully negotiate that patch and cross the river to come to this camp. Going ahead from here, one reaches the Kalapani camp almost near the head of the valley. But that's where you take a left turn, leaving the main valley. Take a left turn into the Kalapani glacier, which the locals also call as Pushahari Nala. So we are seeing the main valley ahead of us here, and this is where we will take a turn into the valley, which is behind us. The route climbs up steadily and reaches the base camp at about 5,400 meters, from where one can see the pass saddle, which is not a very difficult one. It looks very nice and inviting. But it's an interesting point. Before the saddle, all the waters that melt actually go into the Ganga and then onto the Bay of Bengal. But all the waters behind the saddle or after this saddle go into the Baspa, the Satluj, the Indus, and the Arabians. So it's a very interesting water parting line. The next day, the walk takes you over the pass. The pass looks like this, looking into the Baspa Glacier. Not a very difficult one, but the climb down into the Baspa involves a bit of a crevassed area crossing. So one needs to rope up. But once you reach the head of the Baspa Glacier, the campsite is really lovely and provides excellent photographic opportunities. The next day, however, is the long walk down the Baspa Glacier along a constantly downhill sort of a track. At the end of the glacier, you reach a bit of a broken patch, which is difficult to negotiate. But after you cross that snout, you are onto the Lamkhaga Pass route. After that, it is the standard method of going to Dumti camp and then onwards to Chitpur. There are various opportunities for new explorations as well in this valley, like the upper Jadungad Valley that we saw, which is undocumented, but a lot of villagers talk about their old route to Tang going through this. Similarly, the pretty valley of Demoche Gad we saw on the left while working out the Chunsakhaga route. Much earlier than this subsidiary valley of Demoche Gad is this lovely little valley of Chalingad, which can be a short day trip. It's like a Janaktal sort of a trip. Maybe in 4 days, one can go in and come out with a little bit of exploration. Before concluding, I would like to mention all the co-expeditioners in the team, prolific adventurers in their own right. Without this fantastic team, one would never have got the inspiration and the encouragement to carry out these tough expeditions. So happy trekking after all these times are over, which shall be soon. So thank you very much.